Hey Sean, welcome and thanks for joining us here. I know
Thanks for having me.
you are briefly here in London, and then we are really glad that you could make it, and probably I could call you here and then talk about something really interesting. But also to the audience who are joining, who are on the stream, like Sean is like obviously popular as a developer. I can't say advocate or
Yeah, I'm no
creation person. Like
longer
it's more
in
like a
DevRel.
aficionado. He help.
I'm a writer. That's what I always
Yeah,
say.
you're a writer, but then you're more than that for a lot of people. Like you're an analyst, you're a creator, you're a builder, innovator in several ways. You're distilling knowledge now through Latent Space podcast. I think you should definitely catch out. I mean, if your people are not aware of Latent Space, like an amazing place. And yeah, and previously I think there's a lot of bio to Sean as well, so I'm not going to cover all of that because like it's amazing as well. He's worked at AWS, Airbyte, and a bunch of other companies. He also like did a lot of front end stuff. So thank you, Sean. Thank you for being here,
Thanks.
and
Thanks for having
thank you
me.
for being here in a short time. And yeah,
And I would also say, I guess, relevant for this conversation, I've been a student of databases for a little bit. I think databases are the next marvels of engineering. And every company is basically a database that has a custom schema for their domain. So I'm always excited about that. And then obviously with the AI angle, I think making use of your data or augmenting your data, I think is a pretty top of mind concern right now for a lot of people. So yeah, excited to talk about all that.
yeah, definitely. Like I mean, diving right in. I just want to ask like you said that you were a student of databases, and then I know that you also wrote about Oops database. I built a database
Yeah,
blog, and
yeah, that was fun.
and but then we are in every time a new technology trend pops out and people say like oh, we are at an interesting junction, something like that. But then now that it looks like we are really at an interesting junction, like there are a lot of reasoning engines, people are building on top of data or warehouses, whatever. So how do you think this the entire the data management, data abstraction,
Oof.
data cataloging, like on the top of your mind, I know you keep reading a lot of stuff, but then on top of your mind, what's your simple vision or something that you
Simple
think
vision.
about all of the time? Yeah.
I think a lot of it actually hasn't changed in the past year, and we should not over-index on maybe like the foundation models or the large language models. A lot of traditional data science and ML is very much put stuff in a data warehouse, and every now and then when you have some goal to optimize, you can run models and serve them in production with traditional ML ops. And I don't think that ever changes, and nor should it. Like that is the most efficient way of doing it, and probably most responsible way of doing that. I think the frontier stuff that people are experimenting with, and this is very much an experiment, is data augmentation, continuous learning or online fine tuning of the models that they serve, and then also I guess leveraging foundation models from other people. So I would say the difference between software 2.0 and software 3.0 is where we're crossing the line, and so maybe I should define those terms.
Yeah.
So software 1.0 is hand coded code. So like if then else while loops, anything where a human is basically writing every single step of what should happen. Software 2.0 is the classical machine learning paradigm where you collect a whole bunch of data and you train some algorithm that you pick off the shelf that fits the problem that you're trying to optimize for, and serve that algorithm in production. And I think that has been the focus of essentially the modern data stack or the modern ML stack for the last 10 years. And the more recent, newer thing is Software 3.0, which is foundation models, where you do not even start with your own data. You start with someone else's data collected by a foundation foundation model lab, like an OpenAI or Anthropic, and they would train the models for you. They serve it to you through an API, or maybe they open source it, whatever it is. But you're taking a model off the shelf and then deploying it. So you get to skip the data collection part, which is huge. As a trade-off, you don't have as much ability to maybe like fine-tune things sometimes. And for a while, GPT-3 was not possible to fine-tune. But you can still do in-context learning and prompting and retrieval augmented generation, all of which are very familiar techniques by now to anyone in the data AI stack.
Yeah, amazing. That's a lot, but also like you summarized it really well. But did you even see more of like enterprises and companies are in software even today moving to software 2.0, like oh, I have the data, I'm just trying to organize them and like put a machine learning model, try to see what's interesting for me. Do you think that it's already overwhelming to like when we are like already at a new place and calling a new term? And what do you think about it, like and the interesting thing with this tech I noticed, and I would like to also see what you think about it, is like, say, the LLMs is already into the enterprise. Like, a lot many companies who are already deep into this area, like Salesforce and everyone, they are already building on the data for the customers. So for some people who might not even know or don't have any ML team or a data science team as well, like, how do you think about that, like for the enterprise side of things?
I mean, I think they all have their own journeys into adoption. I don't think that, again, I think a very core message of mine is that software 2.0 adoption has not changed at all. Like, if there was a business case for it, in 2022 or 2021, like there's still a business case for it in 2023. And it's very much about your readiness to deploy that and to actually take advantage of it in your products, processes, and design. Because I do think that it does require some adjustment in the development and design of your whatever your product's interface, whether it's like a recommendation system, like a fraud detection system, anything like that. I do think that people can skip from software 1.0 straight to 3.0 because it's more or less a different set of AI, applied AI. It is generative instead of classifying. And generative can be very much, for most people, it's just a chatbot, right? Like chat with your docs or chat with your internal Notion or Slack. And I think that's perfectly fine. It's a really good place to start with. It's only when you start thinking beyond that into reasoning use cases or educational use cases or data augmentation use cases that starts to get really interesting.
Mm-hmm. That's a lot. Again, I have so many questions, but then I just want to ask one, move a bit and ask some more questions on, again, databases. Like, while there are like proprietary and really old big league databases like Oracles and like, a lot of people use them still. I still find them everywhere. But also like in that there are categories, niche players who have become mammoths by themselves, like, the document DB models, like, MongoDB and all, search models like Elastic and Elasticsearch is really popular. So a lot of different categories where they excel in their own way. Now, again, if you see, they're all storing data, but serving a different sort of users, and then customers also adopted, like, oh, I want to build a search, like, I use this search database, like, but now if you see all the data is also, again, like trying to unify in a like amalgamate in some place and then language model. Do you think that these large language models could like unify that categories for the databases and like, where everything gets stored one place, and then this can be like the query, the super cool query engine?
Yeah, the supergraph. I doubt it. I'm kind of a skeptic. Like everyone says this, and there are a lot of people who want to be the one integration tool to rule them all. I worked at one of them, Airbyte. And naively, you can dump all data in one place, and yes, but then it's really hard to get high quality results out if you don't understand what's going on with your data. By which point you're more or less just going case by case and adjusting your output based on the stuff that is coming in as your data sources. So I think that's a vision that people want to achieve, but we may never reach there. It's like kind of an asymptotic vision. And the reality for most people, it's a very unglamorous mess of scripts that are just running, and that's totally fine, and we should normalize that. I think.
Yeah,
I will say, like, you mentioned one special category of database, which is the search databases. And I always think like it's very interesting for the search problem to think about search problem as a cognate or like the minimum viable AI system. Is this something that you've ever thought about, or is this something that people talk about?
Yeah, in the past I worked on search systems, and then I always find people trying to do this, like trying to bring in what currently is like really becoming common or normal.
Yeah.
With the large language models.
Yeah.
and I think like several other databases are also like either taking the vector search or different approaches to try to do the same thing that yesteryears if you find in like in these large Google I/O, somebody who could at that scale could do it. Like somebody now a normal database could also like in the search area could do it. So I find it really becoming common, or people are
Yeah.
talking more about it.
Yeah, yeah, I think if anyone is firmly in the database world and wants to see like a natural progression into AI, I think there's no better way to do it than search. Obviously, this is the same exact journey that Google took the last 10, 15 years. And it's very much like, you start out with like, okay, I want exact string match, and then you want like partial string match, or the transition from like I like to like, and then like, oh, let's think about casing, let's think about stemming, and then you slowly descend your way into like, okay, like, this bag of words approach doesn't really work. Like we need to machine learn this stuff, and surprise, surprise, that is called an embedding, and you need to index your rows a different way, and that eventually becomes a vector search engine, where you search by similarity. And so I just think that these are all of a kind, and you can build it into your database if you want, or you can have custom vector search databases, which also do the same thing. I just think it's super interesting because right now everyone is the startup industry is trying very, very hard to establish the vector search database as its own standalone product. I did some numbers a few months ago. $235 million have been invested in the last year in vector database companies. But like, Elastic is building in their own, Redis is building in their own, Cassandra is building their own. I'm sure Surreal, I don't know if Surreal, like, you want to pitch yourself as like
yes,
a
Khalil has
vector. Yeah. And so like everyone should have it as a feature, not a product. And
Yeah.
and it's just part of a database, and your database is your starting point for AI.
Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. I think like something like vectors is like only thought about some e-commerce players where they want to search something related to like red top, or it's more case by case. But now it's becoming more like, oh, I just want to augment it, or like I have data and then I want to
Yeah.
enrich it. It's becoming more in that aspect.
Yeah, and you still want to keep the regular filtering queries, like the SQL-like syntax and features, which I'm sure you guys fully appreciate. But I think people maybe swing too much into like, oh, let's machine learn everything and forget the basic UX of like, it's nice to filter for precisely what you want.
Yeah. I mean, on the same lines, I just want to ask more again on the querying part itself, because what ChatGPT has done for everyone is like it gave a chat interface and like you could really converse with it. NLP become like as seamless as it is, like
Yeah.
it's natural language, and we would always be, any question is distilled and you get a summarized answer very unique to yours. On the same front, SQL for developers has been that interface for the data for quite some time, right? And then I know that several companies are trying to do English SDKs, and then like trying to query questions.
Really,
like,
I haven't seen a proper English SDK. A lot of people are trying to do text to SQL, is what I call it, which is English to SQL.
Yeah.
But I don't know about English SDK. That's very aggressive.
So yeah, I think what do you think about like natural language, that all the languages that we speak become an interface? Because you have seen on the app building side, we have now no code, low code tools where you have different professionals, be it an accountant, a lawyer, build tools or their vision for their own small idea, and people are building that. So do you see something similar so that they could ask more questions? Like this is more like an analyst or people who are doing BI.
Yep.
Or the investment banker who's not much into the tech but has. Do you see that happening?
I would say a lot of people are trying, and the simple demos will be very impressive and very promising until you try to get something complicated. And the problem with using natural language is it's not very precise.
Yeah.
So we often don't really know what we're asking for, and sometimes the friction of having to define it in machine language actually helps to refine what it is we want. Sometimes we don't know, and asking an LLM, any LLM, to guess what's in your head when you don't even know what you want can be an impossible task. I don't think it's. I don't know if I should say impossible. Nearly impossible. You basically need to evolve from a simple Q&A chatbot into something like an agent that has a theory of mind, that understands where you are at and tracks you and can push back on you without agreeing with you all the time. And that is something that is not well understood or developed right now. So I would just say like, yeah, you you can do simple demos with it, but careful about taking it too far. Having a really good semantic layer does help, but it has always been helpful to maintain a semantic layer, and it's never been easy.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and so that doesn't change at all.
Yeah, pretty interesting. Interesting. So yeah, I'll again, so many thoughts again, but then we're wandering around different topics. But I would like to ask more and collect your thoughts on this topic as well. Like, for databases, I think infrastructure, running databases on specific infrastructure or running at scale is always like discussed, especially when tools like Kubernetes has come in, like orchestrator, containerizing things.
Well,
So
are you putting your database in Kubernetes?
yeah, especially distributed databases on Kubernetes. That's itself is a distributed system anyway. So I'm just curious, like, whenever you're talking about infrastructure for AI, but also like you have data engines as well. So I know that you've made recently about a tweet, and wherein I saw some replies wherein like the current scene is more like very early times where it's like Docker in the infrastructure space at that level, or even pre Docker like at Mesos or that level. So and Nvidia as a hardware superbar, like with all the GPUs and stuff, like people training on those. So how do you think that maybe this area of like infrastructure for data and then like the LLMs would grow out to be? Do you think that there is more open source that would be done where people uh, about AI infrastructure space? Like do you see that that sort of thing coming up?
I don't have a lot of people trying. So I sitting in San Francisco, I try to track a lot of the infra startups that are out there. Not that many specifically on model serving that's open source. There are a lot of former Facebook PyTorch team members leaving Facebook and starting AI infra startups, and all of them look the same. All of them are the best at serving PyTorch models, and all of them are closed source. Not much room for open source there. I would say people very much view this as the early days, and they want to keep that proprietary solution out there. So there isn't a Docker for large language models yet. There's actually a former Docker core team that is trying to do that. They have a model file just like you have a Docker file. And they actually have a model hub just like you have a Docker hub. And they've also set this up. It's the Ollama team, OLLAMA. They've been doing very well on Hacker News. But I don't think that's quite right because it's just pointers to large files. It doesn't actually solve anything of packaging wise. It doesn't actually solve anything to do with running things locally. And running things locally is one thing, but running things in production is a totally different thing. It's the same issue with Docker and Docker Swarm and Kubernetes. So there is no Kubernetes of AI yet, and it might just be Kubernetes. So,
Very true.
So I'm less familiar with the other offerings that are out there, but that's just my understanding of where things are at there. Mostly when people talk about AI infra, they're talking about logging, observability, A/B testing, that kind of stuff. Pretty lightweight things, not really infra for compute. And I do think that is the high value thing right now, which is infra for compute. Maybe I'll point out one thing, which is people are trying to do decentralized computing. So basically, a lot of us have like GPUs sitting at home. Why can't we like shard it out and run inference or training on GPUs? And I think the case for training is a lot better than for inference because inference obviously is very time sensitive. So I don't know. I would just say like this is very early stage right now.
Yeah. That's really cool, Sean. I think thanks for joining us. Like 30 minutes passed really fast.
Yeah.
And we're really glad that you are here and shared more knowledge. And I think Sean is running a conference next month in October, AI Engineer, that helps you prime up to the AI space and probably bring all your skills or sharpen your skills or build new skills related to the AI world that we are looking at. And so if you all, I think the virtual is free if you want to talk about it.
It's AI Engineer Summit, October 8th to 10th. we'll have like the top people from like OpenAI. We had Anthropic, but they moved to March. LangChain, GitHub, Microsoft, Vercel, and a long list of other
Yeah.
top builders. I would say, yeah, the online summit, the online tickets are free and all that. For me, it's just more important that I think this category is emerging of the AI engineer that is separate from like traditional software engineer. Like obviously there's overlap, but there's an emerging stack that requires a lot of keeping up to date. Such that it's basically a full-time job to be familiar with all the tools, be able to make assessments to that. And essentially, this is my version of KubeCon for DevOps, or like the AWS Summit or Big Data London for the data engineering industry. So I think the AI engineering industry needs a definitive conference for everyone to get together and see the state of the art. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Fantastic. And thanks, Sean. Thanks for coming here.
Thanks for having me.
We are always glad.